In this quick tutorial, discover how to seamlessly transfer data from Google Sheets to Notion using Latenode. Stay tuned to automate your workflow effortlessly. Let's create a scenario for transferring an added row from a Google Sheet to a Notion database. We will start by creating a new scenario on the Latenode platform. Name it right away so we don't lose it. Save the changes. The first node added to any scenario should be a trigger node. This node will initiate the scenario when events occur. In our case, when a row is added to the Google Sheet, we will choose the required application and the necessary node on the Trigger tab. For example, adding a new row. To set up the node, you need to perform authorization. Let's create new authorization, select the required service, use the existing Google account, and allow Latenode platform all accesses. Authorization completed, fill in the fields for setup. We are interested in the fruit table and Sheet 1. Save the changes. Let's test the added node. Run it once, go to the required Google Sheet, and add a row to it. Wait for the changes to be saved. The node on the Latenode platform has already executed. We see that a new row has been added with the following values. Let's add the next node, an action node. We can click on the right connection point of the added trigger node and on the Actions tab, select the required application. We are interested in the Notion application and the specific node for adding a record to the table. To set up the node, you also need to connect. Select the required service and use the existing Google account. You need to select the page where access will be granted. Select all possible and confirm access. To set up the node, you need to fill in 2 fields that correspond to the table fields in the Notion database. Let's first look at the database. The database contains 2 columns, the fruit name and its color. Thus, we need to choose which column will be filled with which value from the table cell. Let's go back to the Latenode platform to the field for specifying the fruit name. Add the first element of the new row array. The first element is denoted by the number 0, so leave it here. We also need to fill in the field for indicating the color. Once again, let's look at the value returned by the trigger node, but the new row array is an array of 2 values. Here, the first element of the array is the fruit name, and the second element is the fruit color. Let's return to the Notion node. The second element of the array can be selected as follows. We will select the first element of the array and manually replace the number 0 with the number 1. Click the Save button. To test, run the node once. The node executed. The value is added. Refresh the page. In the table, we will see the added row with the fruit name and its color. The scenario is saved. Let's expand it. The trigger node will ensure the automatic execution of the scenario as soon as a new row is added to the table. Let's expand the scenario. Open the scenario history. Try adding a new row to the table. Simply copy the previous row. Changes saved successfully. Wait for the scenario to complete. The scenario has already executed. Both nodes were executed sequentially. The node for writing the row to the Notion table tells us that the row was added successfully. Go to the database and see the newly added row, identical to the previous one. Let's add another row. Review the scenario execution. The scenario executed successfully. Look at the Notion database table. The new row is displayed in the database. We created a scenario that duplicates the row added in the Google Sheet to the Notion database. The row may have more than 2 values. In such a case, you can select elements from the array, changing the values in the square brackets. Here it can be the number 3, 4, or 5, depending on how many cells the row consists of, depending on which cell is needed to fill a particular column in the database. The scenario will execute as long as it is in active status. To stop the automatic execution of the scenario, it needs to be deactivated. Thank you for your attention.